You ever notice how some buildings don't feel empty even when there's no one inside? I believe those old bricks in those walls can definitely keep a memory the same way a person can keep a secret. You can paint them, you can hang new lights from the ceilings, you can change the sign on the door 5 times over. It won't matter. The memory will still wait you out. And that's how I feel about the Beermann's building, but it's important to the story and, it's haunted history in general to call it the old Oddfellows building. Just to be historically correct. They called themselves the Oddfellows, and they wore the name pretty proudly, not because they were strange, but because they were different. Ordinary men who met in secret to remind each other of something the rest of the world tried to forget: death. Many towns still have the old Oddfellows halls, some renovated, some abandoned, and some, quietly active, maybe even here. I'm still trying to wrap my head around why nobody can go downstairs there. Are there literally skeletons in their basement down there? I don't know. It's an enigma. So anyways, inside the halls, behind locked doors, they used to have symbols that most people would never dare to look at. A skull and crossbones resting atop a coffin, or, human bones, darkness, silence. Every ritual was designed to confront a single truth. Life is short, and none of us are going to escape the grave. But these weren't symbols of evil. They weren't devil worshippers or cultists, but the item, that they brought into the building or rituals they might have, bind people to a location, they're very likely to have occurred in that Oddfellows building. So imagine, stumbling upon those rituals in the middle of the night, with candles and masks and coffins, a skull staring back at you in the flickering light. It's no wonder why so many of those old Oddfellows halls are just haunted. For as long as I can remember, people quietly suggest that someone died working in the building, but no one names them, and no official sources confirm any deaths in the building. So, believe me, I would love to carry on that narrative, because it sounds like a lot of fun, but it would be completely fictitious. I'm trying to keep this reasonable. So, however, with the Oddfellows being a fraternal order, the building would most definitely hosted funerals, private ceremonies, and stuff like that. Here, I'll show you some pictures of the coffin and real human skeletons that have been found in Oddfellows halls when I was doing research. They use ancient symbolism such as the skull and the all-seeing eye. Oddfellows do not preach a religion, and their lodges are definitely not churches. Instead of practicing worship, they promote ethics and values. Some famous Oddfellows include Wyatt Earp, Winston Churchill, Charlie Chaplin, and Franklin D. Roosevelt. It's pretty mind-blowing, really, for such a macabre thing to have those really famous people in it. And yes, they are still open and very much odd to me. So, that building has been standing since the 1800s. It dresses up different for every decade. It's been a meat market, business hub, lodge, meeting place, restaurant, bar, music upstairs, laughter downstairs, right? And every new owner tries to bring in more life, more sound, more light, more reason to fill the place with friends. So I truly think that the building loves people, and the new owners are bringing in youth and music and dance and life back to the place, It's why they put a theater on the second floor. So that's why I'm not worried about the curse in the building, But anyways, people do tell me there's 3 kinds of presences that dwell within the, dusty old walls there, and 2 that stand together and 1 that wanders, and then, another one that, it might not have ever had a soul to begin with. So tonight I'm going to share, with you the stories that I've heard, and you can decide what to believe yourself. The building's bones were set in a different world. Meetings upstairs, serious faces, coats, collars, rules, and rituals. Down below, the motion of ordinary life. Boots on plank floors, a coin on the counter, the simple business of getting through a day. Time went on and names changed like the seasons. New ideas, new menus, new paints. But up there on the third floor, some people still feel the reminder of etiquette. That's the word I'll use. Like a hush you didn't ask for. I was told the first pair is often found together when they show themselves. A man and a woman. They don't speak, they don't rush, they don't really do much of anything at all. They just are. So the man stands tall, formal, they say, not, the kind of posture you see anymore these days. Coat hanging, no hands where you should see them, eyes. I don't think anybody's looked long enough at this ghost to describe his eyes, but he's mostly a shape with a purpose, right? People catch him from the corner of their eye like they've interrupted someone in the middle of a duty. And sometimes beside him, there's a woman just inside the balcony, as if she's being polite about not crossing a line that she's not supposed to cross. She has a high collar, a long dress, not dramatic, no movie ghost with wind in her hair. The way folks talk about them, it doesn't feel like a tragedy. It feels like an obligation, almost like they were asked to keep watch. Maybe nobody told them, that the watch ended. Maybe the bell never rang at the end of the meeting. So a server from a previous restaurant once said she saw a man at the stairs after closing. Lights were off, just an ambient glow from the outside, the front of the window. And she was halfway down the stairs when she realized somebody was on the landing, a silhouette that didn't match anybody on her team. So she turned around to say, "We're closed." And in that breath between thinking and talking, he was already gone. So she kept walking because, that's what people do. But she told me later that, she kept her hands on the rail all the way down, because she suddenly remembered how far it is to the floor. Another worker said that she didn't see him, but she saw the woman right on the threshold to the balcony upstairs above the second floor. It wasn't frightening, she said. More like walking into a memory that wasn't yours, which is actually a really good description. The woman didn't move, didn't lift a hand, just the sense of somebody who used to step through that door 100 times and then one day didn't. Now, if that were all, you'd have a pretty neat story. I mean, a pair who never left, a building that holds on to a routine. Maybe it was a love story, who knows? But that's not what most people ask me about. Most people ask me about the laughing girl. And this one's different, she doesn't stand where you can see her. She doesn't stay in one place. She actually moves between 3 other buildings, like a secret you could almost catch if you were a little bit faster. They call her the laughing girl. So if you want to hear her, just, all you have to do is make one mistake, and that's to be the last person upstairs. It doesn't matter if you're counting tips or stacking chairs, curling a wire from a microphone, or just looking for a light. Which, by the way, the light switches in that building are just ridiculously hard to find. Anyway, if you're the last one and the hallway is longer than you remember and the door is darker than it should be, that's when you might hear her. Not a scream, not a sob, just a quiet, close laugh. Like a child who knows where the hiding spot is and thinks the game is very, very funny. A bartender once told me years back that he heard it right behind him, clear as a bell. He turned fast enough to make his shoes squeak, and there was nobody there. He said it wasn't cruel, it wasn't friendly either, though. It was just sure of itself, like it had been laughing at the same moment in that same place for 100 years, and would keep doing it whether he believed it or not. What makes the story travel is that she doesn't keep in one address. People swear they've heard her across the plaza or in different old buildings 2 doors down. But I've never heard enough from any other building to think that she likes the upstairs here the best. This is where the floors remember music. This is where footsteps were measured. This is where the voices carried on purpose. I mean, where a stage, old or new, could teach the sound how to float. Now, there's another part to the story. The reason why I'm telling it today and not saving it for winter night is because of the family that brings that upstairs back to life. The new owner, Steve and Dana Pagano, have plans as big as any I've seen for the building. Downstairs, you'll find a theater, event center, Rockstar Pizza, downtown dance, where lessons will put the rhythm right back in those walls again. Upstairs, music, live shows, a stage that'll be the delight of the community. A place for laughter that belongs to the living, a new life for the dead, one might say. That's what I mean when I say some buildings love people. This one does. You can feel it when you sweep the floor, when workers measure, when they hang a line and argue about an inch, It's a lively kind of work. It's the right kind of work. So, anyways, but even while all that good work is happening, the building hasn't forgotten its habits. Their son, Stevie, he's 16 years old, curious the way a 16-year-old should be, and he had some friends, went up there for the night, just like teenagers do, not to break anything or stir up trouble, just to see whether the stories felt different in the dark. They waited, they listened. One boy laughed at the idea of waiting for a laugh, which, is actually kind of funny. One boy tried to make a whisper echo. The air went still like it does when it's deciding if it wants to rain outside. And Stevie stopped. He heard something. The others didn't hear it. He did. He said it wasn't loud. It wasn't even loud a little bit. It wasn't anybody, sneaking around. Nobody popped out, nothing like that. It was just a single small laugh right behind them. Where nobody was standing. Just, ha! Not happy, not mean, just certain. He turned because that's, what you do when your name hasn't been called out, but something acts like it knows you. And there was nothing to see. Only the far door and the long floor and the feeling that the building had just made a decision without telling what it was. I thought a lot about that actually since he told me. A laugh that doesn't need company sounds so light it might be a trick of the ear, except it keeps happening to the kind of people who are too tired to make things up, bartenders counting registers, a dance teacher with a key, a teenager who suddenly isn't sure if he wants to be on the last the last one on the landing. So now I don't say any of this to make villains out of the old floors and beautiful ceilings. That's not this kind of story. Most nights, nothing happens at all. The ovens warm the bottom floor, music warms the top, people go home full and happy and ready to come back. But I don't think the past is gone. I think that the upstairs ever really empties out. I think some buildings learn our names and keep them on file. And before you ask, no, I don't think the man and the woman have anything to do with the laughing girl. Folks try to tie everything together like a bow. I don't hear it that way, but that's just me. Those two, they feel like a page torn from a book with rules in it. Someone told them to stand and someone told them to wait, and that's what they're doing. Maybe they're guarding a meeting that never adjourned. Maybe they're making sure people behave in a room where people have never behaved. The girl, she's playing a different game. If she ever had the rules, she forgot them on purpose. I'll tell you one more thing, and I'll tell it really carefully because I don't want people to avoid going there. This place, like any other that runs on kitchens and ladders and late hours, it's had its share of ordinary kinds of sorrow. But some folks will tell you that the ghosts in this building mean no harm and that they're just echoes caught in routines. But every now and then you'll hear a different kind of story. Not about the man on the stairwell, not about the woman in the doorway, and not about the laughing girl. It's something else, something nobody wants to name. They don't describe a face, they describe a feeling, a sudden shove on the back when nobody's nearby, a grip on the shoulder. It's like walking straight into someone's anger. One man said it felt like the building itself was telling him to leave, and he did not wait to argue. Unlike the others, this present never lingers in plain sight. It doesn't stand, it doesn't watch, it pushes, it presses, it wants you out. And maybe it isn't a ghost at all. Maybe it's just all the years piled up, all the pain, all the uproar this place has seen, solidifying into one thing with no face and no patience. Nobody agrees on what it is. They only agree on this. Whatever that thing is, it doesn't laugh. So, when Steve and Dana, string the lights and test the microphones, when they set down the chairs and count the beats for a dance step, when the first night of a show arrives and there's a hum in the rafters because 100 people are ready to clap, that's not fighting the ghosts. That's giving the building what it's always wanted. And in that happy noise, a young man pauses because he heard one small laugh from nowhere. I don't think the building's going to mind. I think, I don't think the past is going to be jealous either. I think the old timetables and the young footsteps will overlap in a way that they're supposed to for a brief second, and then the music will start. And the only thing left upstairs will be echoes, some from, just now and some very old. All of them layered just like that paint on them. People ask me, do you believe? And I tell them the truth. I said, I believe in God. I believe in places. I believe in, the way a floorboard remembers your weight. And I remember, how a door remembers how many times its handle's, been held. I believe in the way a laugh can travel farther than, the person who made it. I believe that if you keep a door open, something's going to walk through it. And if you're the last one to leave up there, if you're locking up after a rehearsal or picking up the last napkin, don't be surprised if you feel like you're not alone. Don't be afraid of it either. I mean, the building is old, but the night is kind. And if she laughs, let her. It may be that she isn't laughing at you or with you. She's just maybe laughing because she remembers something you don't. As for the man and the woman, if you see them, be polite. That seems right to me. Nod the way you might nod to a stranger who held the door, for you a lifetime ago. Don't ask them questions. Don't try and fix something that isn't broken. Just go about your business and let them go about theirs. Because, this isn't a story about fear. It's a story about continuity. And a place like that, it keeps its own hours. It holds its laughter and, occasionally adds a little bit of its own. So here's my advice, free of charge. When the doors open and the show begins, when the ovens are hot and the dance shoes scuff the floor, fill that building with the kind of sounds that last, laughter that belongs to people who get to go home afterwards, music that knows how to leave a room better than when it found it. And if something else laughs along, faint upstairs at the edge of the doorway where no one else stands, well, that's just the building remembering. So, thanks for watching another Strange Stories of Lincoln, you guys. Keep your eye out for the next episode. If you like this one, please share it with somebody who cares about our town or simply likes storytelling. As always, I'm Mike Crossfield. I'm a local business owner trying to build a stronger Lincoln together. So, thanks for your help with that.